When it comes to small law firms, HR department is almost unheard of. Yet whether you know it or not, HR is a standard function that all of small law firms have. Unless you're working by yourself, you have an HR function. What's an HR function? Well, it's a function that recruits or rather attracts prospective employees and vendors, because building a team, whether it's internal or external, is still an HR function. So it attracts employees and or vendors, and it hires the right ones, and it's supposed to train them, and it's supposed to make sure that you're maximizing performance of your team. Again, whether it's internal or external. What I often see in small law firms is that most small law firms have wonderful people work there. They're solid, they're warm, they're caring, they're there because they want to be there. And most of them, not all, but most of them are solid B players. Not A players, solid B players. Again, good people, good at what they do, usually just not great. And that may be very, very okay for your law firm, for what you're looking to achieve. However, if you want to maximize profitability in your law firm, if you want to have more peace of mind in your business, if you want to maximize the value of your firm, should you decide to sell it one day, you will have to start building an HR system that's focused on recruiting, retaining, and maximizing performance of A players. Here's what I mean by this. A players are usually the people who know what to do, how to do it without you telling them to do so, report on things that they've done correctly, and do it with excellence more often than not. B players, by the way, A players are practically always free. No matter what role you give them, no matter what they do within your firm, they're free because the value that they generate significantly exceeds what you spend on them, unlike C and D players. B players are also very valuable. They're just usually not focused on excellence, usually, not always. And because they're not focused on excellence, they usually deliver good results, but not great results. And if you think about it, if you were to ever buy a law firm, not start your own, not operate your own, but actually buy a law firm, would you want to buy law firm or any other business for that matter that is operated by A players or B players? Of course, you would want to own a business that's operated by A players. Absolutely goes without a saying. So when you think about your business, the obstacle, and I've had these conversations numerous times with law firm owners, is when we talk about hiring A players, they say, well, I don't know how to get them. They usually go to the big law firms. And I'm like, I agree. And we talk about like what needs to happen here in our small law firm to attract A players. I gotta say that the first step for you to attract A players is to become an A player type of a leader of your law firm. And to become an A player of a type of a leader of your law firm, you have to develop business acumen, understanding how business operates. And this article, this video, is in part about that, talking about HR systems, which we will get to in a minute. And you have to actually practice what you learn to become an A type of a leader of your law firm. So here we go. Let's talk about the HR system and what you need to get there with A players. And again, HR system can be comprised of people who are working for you inside your law firm and your vendors that are working outside of your law firm. So here are the main functions of your HR system and how to develop them. Number one, recruit. Your law firm should always be recruiting for the key positions. Why? Because you never know when someone is going to leave. They could be with you for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Something happens and they have to go and they give you a 2-week notice. Also, you should always be on the lookout for great A type of players for your law firm, because often enough, an opportunity will arise to get an A type player. And even if you do not have room for them in your org chart, get them aboard. Even if it costs you in the short run because you do not have much work for them to do, get them aboard, because an A player will always over time deliver much more value than what you're going to invest into them. So get them aboard. Always be recruiting. Believe me, even somewhat sizable small firms do that regularly. They're running ads and are always telling their employees to look for other high performance players. So whenever they hear someone looking to leave their job, if they're good at what they do, great at what they do, people, internal people, are incentivized to bring in those people for interview, make those introductions. So make sure that you're always recruiting. Number two, when you're hiring people, when you're interviewing them, make sure that they are A players. Do not allow B players or worse on your team. This is an ongoing effort and it has to be very, very conscious effort. Whoever's in charge of recruiting, whoever's in charge of hiring, should understand what the difference between A player and B player is and focus on hiring A players. For that, you actually have to document what an A player is and what a B player would be. You never want to hire C players. C players are incredibly expensive. So focus on hiring A players with, if you have to, an occasional B to fill in the gaps. By the way, if you're always recruiting, the probability that you will get a B player significantly lower than if you're recruiting only when you need someone. Keep that in mind. That's why you should always be recruiting 365 days a year. Number three, when you bring those A players aboard, you need to train them. They may know everything about operations in that particular role, but they still do not know your firm. They still may not know exactly how you want them to do things, the way that are always done in your firm. By the way, often enough, when you bring an A player, they will show you how to improve on your existing systems. So that's another huge benefit of bringing A players. You do not need to tell them, more often than not, you do not need to tell them how to do things. They will show you how to improve on what you got. And finally, another function of HR department is to continually develop those A players to maximize the value that they deliver to the firm, to the clients, and to themselves. The key thing here is to make sure that for every one of those four functions, recruitment, hiring, training, continuous performance improvement, for all four of these, you want to have a documented system in place. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but this is what valuable businesses do. They document every process, including the processes of recruitment and hiring and training and continuous performance improvement. It will not take you a day to do it, but if you set a goal for a full year or 2 quarters or 3 quarters or a quarter to document all of those things and make sure that in your systems, in your procedures, you include standards, like what constitutes an A type of performance. Then people will know what's expected of them and understand those standards, and they will understand how you measure their performance at the regular performance review meetings. Yes, that is definitely part of your HR system. For every department, for every functional zone, you got to have performance review meetings. Some roles, you can do them once a month. Some roles, you have to do them once a week. Sometimes you have to give feedback to people once a day. It depends on the role. But at least once a month is a must for you to give them honest, very, very candid feedback on their performance. And having standards in place for each job, for each position, is an absolute must. All of these are the main components of an effective HR system. Here's what will happen as you develop it. And this may take you a year or two. But as you develop the systems, as you recruit and hire only A-type players, your business will become less chaotic and more systematized. It will start generating more revenue and deliver higher profitability. Stick with it long enough and you will see your law firm flourish beyond your wildest dreams.